I've lived in multiple cities, and he's probably the best, like, out of the box weatherman that I've followed. And following him on Facebook, he's got people that don't even live in the area that follow him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, but hard to defend. He's the only one that actually follow the weather. Really.
And then we're also joined by my good friend Gregory Mattson.
Slinky.
From the Slinky. The convention circuit. He's a huge horror fan as well as disaster film fan and everything geeky.
Okay, did that sound like I was like slamming the weather and stuff? That's not what I meant. I meant
What?
it's a place where anybody who's ever forecasted the weather. So he actually knows stuff.
Exactly.
And he tells us stuff.
That's
and,
all.
Okay. So before we jump into the whole disaster film thing, Denis, where did this whole wanting to get into broadcast and meteorology start for you?
It's a true story. I was 5 years old and I lived in Seattle, Washington, and it was Christmas Eve, and I saw the local weather person tracking Santa on radar. And I thought that was the coolest job in the world, that you could actually get paid to track Santa. And it changed my mind. I mean, once I got into elementary school and I was a little older, we moved to Michigan, and there was this massive tornado outbreak. It was called the Super Tornado Outbreak back in 1974. And one tornado was really close to our house, and I thought it was just incredibly interesting, and that kind of got me hooked. But truthfully, I started because I wanted to track Santa on radar.
It's awesome. It's awesome.
I was in it. What part of Michigan? My wife is from Michigan.
I'm from Michigan.
What part?
I'm from like 45 minutes north of Detroit.
Yeah.
I'm outside of the water crisis city.
Yeah. Oh, outside of Flint?
Yeah.
Yeah, I lived in Mount Clemens and in Fraser, and back, in the mid-'70s, they got some really wild weather. My daughter's looking at me. She's like, wait a minute, my 5-year-old daughter, who's on my live show a lot, she's looking at me right now with this little puppy dog face out from the window saying, wait a minute, you're on TV and I'm not part of this, Dad? What in the world is going on here? So, Ryan, you want to come over here and say hi? Okay, this is not my show. This is a different show. You know this, but you want to be on it. Okay. All right, so this is
If you can be on a show at all, be on a show.
She's so cute.
Yeah, she's my official song person on my show. I have a show Tuesday nights from 7 to 8, and she does all music. So she's been taking over while we've been home casting, which has been now for almost a month and a half. So what's up?
That's the next Lady Gaga there, huh?
Yeah, she loves it. She does. You got a message for me? Wanted to see what. Okay. All right. Cool.
All right. So, you wanted to track Santa, and eventually you did track him. I'm sure you found him multiple times.
Yeah. Every year. I mean, now we use NORAD. NORAD has that really cool website, NORADSanta.com. And not only can you track what Santa is, but you can actually call every year. My kids, I have 6 kids, so I've been doing it for a long time. You can call them before. You can dial the NORAD number, and somebody from NORAD, literally someone from NORAD picks up, and they tell you exactly what Santa is right then and there, and if they're scrambling F-16s and whatnot. So that is how I got into it. I mean, I have a passion for severe weather and disaster films, but it all started back with tracking Santa back when I was 5.
So, growing up, was there a particular disaster film that really caught your eye and made you even more excited to learn and be a part of weather?
Yeah, you know what I like. It's funny because when I think of disaster films, it isn't just necessarily natural disasters. The one my favorite one was Towering Inferno. Mm-hmm. That was back in the mid-'70s, and that was my favorite disaster film, and it was awesome. I mean, all these movies had all these stars in them. Paul Newman, that one had Paul Newman, and O.J. Simpson was in it. By the way, remember there's a famous scene when O.J. goes into a room of the burning hotel or burning building, and there was a cat in there. And OJ was a fire guy, and he walked in, and he's looking around. He doesn't see the cat, and he leaves. And the whole audience goes, "No!" And then all of a sudden, he just opened the door back up and went and arrested the cat. So I can remember pretty vividly a lot of the disaster movies back in the 70s and since then. So I can't say that really. I mean, obviously, the one that, from a weather person standpoint, Twister is the one that I think most folks who have passion for weather. And because if you have a passion for weather, you probably have a passion for tornadoes. And obviously, if you have a passion for tornadoes, you'll like Twister. Now, to answer the story of weather, remember the scene when the whole deal with Helen Hunt, because the reason she wanted to be a storm chaser is because her dad got sucked up in the middle of that tornado in the storm cellar.
Put that belt around the pipe so she wouldn't get sucked up. Yeah.
Well, no, that was at the end. She wanted to, her father got taken and killed. Yeah. And it traumatized her so much. I mean, as cool of a scene as that is, that would never happen. There's no way in a storm cellar that a tornado, I don't care if it's an EF 11 billion, wouldn't matter. A storm cellar is a safe area in the Midwest and in the plains. It's not going to suck the door off and take the person away like it did in Twister, which is when her dad died. So, outside of that, and the whole flying cow thing was awesome.
Yeah. And you did, you mentioned like Tower Inferno, and then I did mention that I liked Earthquake with Charlton Heston.
That was the one I used to watch all the time. It was Earthquake.
Yeah.
You were too young for this, I'm sure. But do you know what made Earthquake so spectacular in the movie theaters?
Sound?
It was called Sensorama. Okay. And if you look at the original posters, you'll even see it. Earthquake in Sensorama, the movie Midway, which came out of the Battle of Midway, not the new one, the one that was, the one not one a year or two ago, the one back in the 70s, late 70s, early 80s. It was Sensorama. All that was there was in the back of the theater, there were about 30 speakers just piled on each other. And whenever the part of the movie where there was an earthquake or when the planes were coming, there was obviously a certain code written for those speakers where the speakers would go and the whole theater would shake. But it wasn't any thing like, when you have the D-box, nowadays some theaters,
D-box seats.
Everything shakes. It isn't like that at all. It was literally just a bunch of speakers, 50 of them piled on each other. Just boom, 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 boom. Imagine all the bass that was coming out of it. And that was the thing. It was Earthquake and Sensorama. That's all it was. Just the speakers.
I used to watch it on a black and white TV, so way different. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And it's funny, like both of those movies, had like solid casts. And if you go back even further, the first Airport movie, which had Dean Martin in it, I mean, that was a solid film with a huge cast of like people that you wouldn't really imagine in a film like that.
I'm just hanging out because I don't know.
Yeah, before your time. I mean, you're right. I mean, Airport was actually even a little bit before my time. But you're right, a classic movie. I mean, a lot of the old school stars. And it was kind of a cool thing in Hollywood back in the 70s to be a part of it. I mean, think of the Poseidon Adventure. And you had Gene Hackman, you had Roddy McDowell, you had all these famous, Ernest Borgnine. So you had all these famous people. And that was kind of a thing in the 70s that if you got to have either a part or a cameo in a disaster film, it was kind of a cool thing to do. Because they were the films in the 70s. I know The Godfather and the classics came out then too. But from disaster movies perspective, they were making a ton of money. And so those stars wanted to be a part of it because clearly they were going to make some money too.
Well, I mean, they had the giant set pieces and they had the really cool looking special effects. Like Earthquake, I used to love that movie because it was all practical effects. Like they would split the stage apart with sand and all these foam rocks and stuff. And as a kid, that was just so cool to watch. It was so neat to see that.
And it's, it still runs. I mean, you still see it on cable from time to time. And, as hokey as it is compared to what the kind of the stuff that we have now, obviously with, a lot of higher end special effects. But I don't know, it's still kind of, it isn't hokey like corny hokiness. I mean, some of the old movies where it's more of a cornball.
It has a charm to it.
agree with you, and I still enjoy them. I'll still if I'm up late, I'm up till 3 or 4 in the morning, and a lot of times you'll have some of these show up on late night, either on TBS or TNT or whatever, or even movie channels, and I'll sit there and watch them because it's just fun to watch.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Another one right around that time that came out was I don't think it was actual theatrical movie, but it was a TV movie with Sean Connery called Meteor. That was like 1979. I just remember because my stepdad would watch that movie a lot because he liked Sean Connery. So.
Yeah, everybody likes Sean Connery.
Hard to not like the guy,
I never saw that one. I remember seeing of it, but that's one that I actually never saw. I mean, I saw Dante's. I'm sorry, not Dante's Deep. Deep Impact, which the whole meteor thing, and obviously Armageddon. I mean, as you get more toward present day, when the comets and the meteors came into play.
Yeah, two
What was
movies
the other one?
that came out like about a year apart, I think, or maybe they came out in the same year.
Armageddon, and what was the other one that
He said Deep Impact. That was I think was that one.
was it? Tommy Lee Jones in that?
No, Tommy Lee Jones was in the volcano.
He was in Volcano. Do you prefer the natural disasters, or do you prefer like the Towering Inferno, or man-made?
I like them all. I mean, I do. I love disaster movies when I was a kid, because that's when I was even a preteen. I mean, those were my years that I just thought they were great. Poseidon Adventure was awesome. I mean,
and watch that movie all the time.
And I actually wasn't as much of a fan of Poseidon, the remake, or the remake back. What was that? Like 8 or 9 years ago. I think Dennis Quaid was in it. I think he was the star. I think it was Dennis Quaid. But I think you said it a couple minutes ago. They all have, they're charmed, and I think that's kind of what it was. I mean, whether it was, we talked about Volcano before you went hot here. Was Volcano was pretty awesome, and I worked in LA at the time, so a lot of local reporters were actually in the film, and they would do cameos and little reports. And so, and I was saying earlier too, I think the tagline for Volcano, "The coast is toast," that was just awesome. Really. So I enjoyed Volcano a lot too. I mean, you got to there's too many people, I think, who goes, well, that could never happen. So what? It's a
movie. You're going to escape. Like, you're going, it's so, yeah, absolutely.
The same thing with Sharknadoes. I mean, there's been, 4 Sharknadoes?
There's 5 now, I think. There's so many shark movies. It's not even funny. Like, there's a lot of them.
Well, because Asylum, the small studio, what they'll do is they'll take whatever genre film is like big at the movie theaters. They'll just like hop onto that and make like a low budget version of it.
Make 40 of them.
Well, there's like Sharktopus, which that's awesome. Like, they're crazy, man. Some of those are really fun to watch because they're just so outlandish. Yeah.
But, I remember them off the top of my head. Like, I remember Armageddon. I remember Deep Impact. I remember the day after tomorrow.
And then there was Dante's Peak with
Dante's Peak. See, that's the one I wanted to ask.
Movie, right?
Dante's Peak was cool because I was born in Seattle. I know that area pretty well, the Mount St. Helens area, and the destruction that goes along with the volcanic eruption. I mean, it probably did not overplay it. I mean, that's stuff that people have never really seen, and when they did, they didn't know what to expect. I don't know if Pierce Brosnan, right?
Yeah, and
Linda Hamilton. Yeah, that's right. But it shoots stuff miles into the air, and
it is. Yeah, that's the.
Well, but remember when we actually have the volcano in Italy, and they had
Pompeii
for 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
And you could see the ash and stuff in the air, even where we were.
I mean, it does. It happens, and it's it still does. I mean, you look at some of them, and they're kind of dramedies because I mean, there's obviously some drama in them, and there's a lot of comic relief, which I enjoy it also. But even with Poseidon Adventure, I mean, I remember it was a 90-foot wave. Well,
Yeah,
that was based on a tsunami. That was an earthquake. And are you going to have a 90-foot wave? Probably not. But at least there's some science to all of it. I mean, you
Yeah.
get giant waves from tsunamis and from earthquakes, and it was I can't remember the number, but it was 7 or 8, whatever, underneath the surface of the ocean, and that stuff happens. So I mean, as outlandish as it is, sometimes there's at the very least there's some truth to it. Same with Twister, same with Earthquake. I mean, no matter what it is. And what was the one? What was the Gator one recently that was
Crawl.
Yeah.
And I love it when people that don't live in Florida write movies about stuff that happens in Florida, kind of, because it, a little more fantastic.
Well, and there is that issue of the person who had the basement, which we don't have basements, and half of that movie was in the basement. Now, according to the director, and I read this afterwards, the director said, well, no, it wasn't a basement, it was actually a crawl space, which was, them covering their butts, because clearly it was a basement. But that's exactly what it was. I mean, anybody who writes a film about Florida should at least know we don't have basements in Florida.
Well,
but I still enjoy it.
No. There's still houses, but that's about it. So.
The crawl space isn't like that anyway. It's not.
Crawl space is up here in my house, so it's
Well, and we had a crawl space underneath our house, and that's where we went if there was a serious tornado in Michigan. But it was underground, but it was only about maybe 25 inches. Like you could crawl in it. That's all you could do. You couldn't walk in it. You couldn't half stand up in it. They were basically standing up in it.
But that movie was so freaking awesome, and that's
like
why
we
it
were
got.
at Stillhouse.
I liked it.
Dude, I liked it, but now I am 100,000% afraid of gators even more than I was before.
Since we're on that topic, though, how legit would if something like that did happen? Would it cause gators to be more aggressive?
You know what? I think it's really active. I mean, you think about it. I mean, obviously we have gators everywhere. It's funny because literally, wasn't the movie? It wasn't in Pasco County. I mean, wasn't that where they were?
Probably. Everything happens in Pasco County. So
I think it was. I think it was Pasco. And yeah, you think about it. I mean, I don't remember what month it was, but clearly there's aggressive gators out there. I mean, there was just a story yesterday. A woman was killed by a gator in South Carolina. She went right up to it. No, actually, she went near it, and it was 4 feet in the water, and it got her. And so, I mean, it can happen. And that part of it, I had no problems at all with any of it, truthfully, because the weather part of it was pretty accurate. I could see a gator getting stuck in an enclosed area and trying to get its lunch. So, I enjoyed it. And I think from the weather part of it, because I'll do that. And sometimes if I'm watching a movie and I see something that just absolutely could not have happened, like in Twister when the dad got pulled out of the storm cellar holding on to onto the door. I'll look at it. Come on,
shenanigans.
But with that one, I didn't really see any weather problems at all. I mean, I just didn't.
Wow. All right. Because I wanted to ask you about 2012. That was or Day After Tomorrow. That was the big one. With weather impacting weather all over the place and it just making it worse. Were you no or holy crap?
Yeah, that was a fantasy. I mean, that
okay.
And I've probably seen that movie 30 times, and but although now every time I look at Jake Gyllenhaal, all I think about is I go from Jake Gyllenhaal to Tobey Maguire to Molly's Game to cheating in poker, and because I'm a big Molly's Game fan, and I don't know if you've seen it or not, but it's a great flick, and it's a true story about obviously the princess, the poker princess, and word was Tobey Maguire was his player X, who was the one who cheated. No, I'm saying didn't cheat. Maybe cheated, but more than anything, he was just had no conscience in taking people down and was like a really just a total jerk. And if you haven't seen the movie, I cannot recommend it enough. Aaron Sorkin directed it and wrote it, and I love him anyway. Did The Social Network, but I think it's a tremendous film. It's really one of my favorites, especially the first 5 minutes. It's totally straying. That's what I have a tendency to do anyway. The first 5 minutes of that film, I think, are brilliant. And anyway, when I see Tobey Maguire, I instantly think the guy's a jerk because in real life, he was this player X who went to these private companies and just raked all this money in, and apparently was a real jerk about doing it. But to answer your question back about Day After Tomorrow, yeah, a lot of that was just nonsense.
Okay.
Sure, there definitely could be high pressure and downdrafts that could bring in some really cold air, but I can't fathom the kind of cold air that would freeze you solid.
Freeze you. Yeah. Like you have to be inside, or else you're gonna get frozen instantly. Yeah. It's a summer blockbuster, so popcorn movie.
You could argue Superstorm Sandy, when it came into New York, I mean, you had water going into the subways, and you had some pretty serious water, which was one of the worst that they've ever seen. And yet you don't have giant freighters going down Midtown because the water is, so high. So, but for somebody who likes severe weather and disaster movies, you're a kid in a candy store in that kind of film because there's everything.
All right. You guys, because I'm going to ask him about A Perfect Storm. So,
well,
he brought up Sandy.
Yeah. Well, he was we were talking about Day After Tomorrow. Is that very similar to 2012? That was with John Cusack, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that one they were building an ark. Remember, they were building a giant ark, and everybody wanted to try to get in it. And it was the same kind of thing.
Okay, I remember it more clearly now.
Yeah, it was at the end. They were the government sent out invitations to certain people. Same thing with Deep Impact, by the way. They did that.
Yeah,
but
they did the lottery.
Yeah, exactly. But they were building this giant ark, and I don't know. I mean, you can make the argument that if we had what was it called in Deep Impact? Ellie. Yeah, it's an acronym for I don't know, end of the world stuff, but it's
whatever that bunker.
ELLE. But they were trying to figure out who Ellie was because they thought there was some big controversy, and it was really an acronym for the end of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Something life extinction. But anyway, the point is, probably what happened. I mean, if we had a giant meteor that was coming this way and it was clearly going to be like that in the dinosaur days, I mean, you got to figure the government probably has some kind of a setup where they're going to save the best of the best, right?
Yeah, they have to save the minimum in order to, repopulate. So,
and you're going to save a lot of scientists who are the smartest of the smart, and some doctors and whatnot. I mean, I don't know. Do you really think that's outlandish? I don't. I think they probably have that.
Pasco wouldn't make the cut, so.
I wouldn't be there either. I'd be sitting on my deck. There you go.
Yeah, you got a front row seat to the end of the world, man.
Yeah. The government's not going to hire Bruce Willis and a team to go.
We're going to send him to the asteroid, and he's going to drill. We're not going to teach astronauts to drill. We're going to send drillers.
Yeah,
the astronauts.
I wonder if that would actually work, though.
I don't think so.
I don't know.
No way.
Every day when politicians study scientists and educators.
I mean, if they could get a spacecraft that had some kind of a drill that would allow the spacecraft to go into it as it's moving. I think of all the disaster movies ever made, Armageddon's probably the most ridiculous.
Yeah.
And it's a great movie. I mean, it's fun to watch. But I think in terms of the science behind it, yeah, that probably is that's the dumbest of the dumb. And yet, you can probably quote half
But then Deep Impact was a lot like that too, but it was a little bit more scientific.
Yeah. So, what about movies that were out around the same time as Volcano and Dante's Peak that weren't like disaster movies like that? Sylvester Stallone's Daylight, where they got trapped in the tunnel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was a earthquake, right?
No, I think it was a bomb that went off, or a car accident, or something.
And
like
it trapped them in the office.
Yeah,
they were stuck in the tunnel with supply.
Yeah. Gosh, I've seen that a few times, and I can't remember what disaster it was. What was it?
I think it was a bomb or something went off.
I thought the bomb caused something, or that something happened and it caused like a mudslide or something that
They were just stuck in this tunnel. And,
Yeah.
you know,
New York.
and there was a traffic jam in the tunnel that like it out and caused the multi.
Yeah, and they only have so much oxygen. So I don't know. I don't know if you know.
Only Sylvester Stallone can save him. He's gonna chew right through the surface. It's gonna be great.
Something like that happen. Like how much like oxygen? Like how long would we be able to survive in something like that?
That's a pretty big tunnel. I think they'd probably be okay for quite a while. I mean, if that was the tunnel, it was in New York, right?
Yes.
So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think
those miners in Chile, they were down there for like 2 months, so they had good oxygen supply.
I mean, I think there probably would be. I mean, I think a Stallone flicks. I think a Cliffhanger, and that's again, it's kind of a disaster movie. I mean, at the very least, a lot of natural stuff going on, and
avalanche in the movie.
That's all legit. I mean, all that stuff. I think certainly, I never saw that movie and said, that didn't happen. Like you said early on, you're escaping anyway. I mean, you always see it, social media especially, you'll see people posting whatever about a film. Oh, that couldn't happen. And it just, come on. And, you're going to the movies or you're watching it at home these days. And and you're just trying to escape. Although, you guys have heard about the big controversy going on between AMC and Regal now, and Universal, right?
Yeah.
Yes, Universal pulled their stuff. So yeah.
So did Regal. They both.
Okay.
Regal and AMC both said, you know what? We're not going to run your films either. But for movies like that, you got to see those on the big screen. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, it's fine and all quality wise, but I mean, if you're going to see a Jurassic Park or you're going to see a disaster movie, if you're not seeing it on a big screen, you're not really.
Well, we saw it was Day After Tomorrow in Mosey. And that's epic, man. Like, holy crap. Yeah. So absolutely.
I've become such a snob when it comes to that. I won't see a good movie like that unless I'm seeing it in Dolby. And I like IMAX, but I think the sound is even better in Dolby in terms of the positioning of where the sound comes from. And so, again, theater, I get the movie, but for me, I don't. And I just can't imagine seeing one of those, even a James Bond movie. Those are ones, or Mission Impossible. I mean, those movies are great. And if you don't see them on a big screen, I just think you're missing out. So I'm figuring Universal and AMC and Regal probably come to some sort of an agreement, because I just don't think either way they're going to survive unless they're together working on that.
Yeah, well, our last episode we were talking about that, and like AMC right now, they're in a position where they can't lose anything. They're in debt big time, and to lose a big franchise like the Fast franchise, that would just kill them.
Yeah, they'd lose Fast and Jurassic Park. They're making another one of those. Clearly, a sequel was set up for a sequel at the end. Trolls, which they did. Obviously, that was the controversy in the beginning. Minions, they'd lose Minions and Despicable Me stuff. So, yeah, I figure they're going to work it out. But at this point, I'm with you. I mean, I kept reading AMC was really close to bankruptcy. I've heard that they think they're going to be able to stave that off. But you're right; they can't give up some of those big franchises. There's just too much money to be made. I mean, I think for Universal the same way, because here's the difference, and this is where I think Universal screwed up. So Trolls, people can watch Trolls on their TV. They had nothing else to do because they were stuck at home, and the kids wanted to see it. So the parents will just up $20 and watch that movie on demand, and the kids aren't really missing out too much. That's why that money made so much, because people were stuck at home and couldn't go anywhere. So you get a movie like a blockbuster that people are going to want to see it on the big screen. I don't believe it's going to do nearly as well, especially when we're not quarantined anymore. I don't think it's going to do nearly as well on a demand release as opposed to a theater. I mean, it's just my opinion, but I really strongly believe that.
Yeah. No, I interviewed a director, it was like 2 weeks ago, his movie was playing at the Ocala Drive-In when they first came off of quarantine, and it came in number 2 because that was the only drive-in, I think, in the country that was showing the movie. Doesn't matter. It still, did its thing. But there were a lot of people there that went because they just wanted to get out of the house, outside, see a movie. And but yeah, if they can pull together, should be able to do something. But when it was released on demand, you had 6 hours to watch it however many times you wanted to, and made a bunch of money. But that would be a shame if theaters closed down because the whole experience.
They're gonna have to figure something out though, because when
they will.
Like for us, just in general, there's 4 of us. I don't always have a babysitter, so going to the movie is a really expensive thing. So we choose really wisely what we want to see, and those are the ones we spend our money on to go see the actual movie. Because otherwise, everything else is wait till it's streaming, wait till it's on.
Yeah.
Wait till it's
Redbox. You hear that all the time.
You do for like $3.99, and if it's worth buying, we'll buy it. But I think that we're in a really strange, situation. Is that if you wanted to watch it, I understand that you'd pay $8 a head to go see it at the movie theater. But if I had to buy it for $20, $25, what was it?
$20 to rent.
It was $20 to rent it. To rent it.
Yes.
Well, because it was a world premiere. I mean, that was the thing. They were saying, okay, it's the same as the movie theater. I mean, I just read an article saying that people are more willing to spend that kind of money on a theater if it's a blockbuster, if it's an Avengers, if it's a,
it's the experience.
A Furious or whatever. But as opposed to a rom-com, they're like, we'll wait for the release on our home screen because what difference does it make?
Hope Floats doesn't have the same zing as the Avengers, so just saying. But no, he's right. He's absolutely right.
So, Dennis, I have a question for my friend Greg here. He wants to know your opinion on the logistics, like reality versus fiction, for the movie San Andreas.
Say that one again. I got traffic going on behind me. I couldn't hear you.
He wanted to know your opinion on reality versus fiction for the film San Andreas with The Rock.
That's just pure fiction. That's just nonsense. Great movie, fun to watch, but
popcorn movie
was just ludicrous. There was another earthquake movie. I guess it was kind of Volcano. They were talking about earthquakes too, but that was
the other one.
Close to any kind of accuracy. And I lived out there. In fact, that was in the North earthquake back in 93, 94. And we were 7.1. That was my first earthquake. And as a meteorologist, you always want to experience severe weather. I mean, chased hurricanes. I've been in the Carolinas. You have that passion to see them. So I'd always wanted to be in a place. And it was at 4:21 in the morning on Martin Luther King's birthday. And the whole house started to shake. And the first 10 seconds, you're like, wow, this is cool. This is what I always wanted to be like. And then the other 35 seconds, you're thinking, oh, man, is this like Superman? And California's going to crack off and go off into the ocean? Because you don't know. I would even argue that Superman was more true to life than San Andreas was when it comes to the truth behind earthquakes and even predicting earthquakes. I mean, there's a lot. You ever seen the movie? Well, I'm sure you did. The movie Phenomenon?
Yeah.
With John Travolta? Yeah. He had that special power that he could kind of sense the waves that are inherently released before earthquakes. That's what actually happens. Now, there's no way to see them in advance, so much so that they know of, that they can actually turn it into a prediction. But that is the kind of stuff that's true. So even subtle things like that are way more true than San Andreas. Even though I love The Rock and my daughter loves Moana and all the things that he does, but in that particular movie, I'd put that one up there pretty close to Armageddon in terms of accuracy.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that earthquake. I lived in San Diego, so I felt that earthquake. Not as bad as you did, but I felt it. I think when it hit San Diego, it was closer to a 6.5.
Yeah, I was about 10 minutes from the epicenter, and it was crazy. I mean, it felt like someone was shaking the entire house. And the irony about it is my oldest son now is 26. He was 6 months old, and that is the first night that he ever slept through the night. So he went through a 7-1 earthquake and never woke up during the entire thing, which is just crazy.
Wow.
And I was in Vegas one time. I was actually staying in Mirage, and it was a $29 flight from Burbank Airport on Southwest to Vegas. So when I lived out there, it was, you'd go to Vegas a lot. And they get a lot of earthquakes because they're in the desert, and usually they're not in Vegas. They're out in the desert, and they're on the perimeter of the impact. Well, I'm up in this hotel, and I'm all of a sudden about 2 a.m. and I'm hearing eek, eek, eek. It's like a squeaking sound. I had no idea what was going on. And in fact, I kind of wondered if it was the room next to me. I wasn't sure where that squeaking was coming from. And I got up and I looked out the window and I saw a wrecking ball. They were destroying the Riviera, or the Stardust. And there was a wrecking ball, and the wrecking ball was going like this.
Oh, man.
So I knew it was actually a 7-8 earthquake, but it was out about 120 miles out in the middle of the desert. So the casinos, and I think you mentioned you were in Vegas, so the casinos, once that happens, the dealers just cover all the chips because somebody can obviously try to grab the chips and make a run for it. But when you're in a hotel or you're out there, you don't know. I mean, an earthquake, it could be. Keep thinking about the big one. I mean, that's what we always think about hurricanes around here. When's the big one going to come? To me, hurricanes are far less scary than earthquakes because at least you see them coming. But earthquakes, you have no idea they're coming, and like that, everything's gone. So anyway, to answer your question, San Andreas was ridiculous in terms of the science, but it was a fun movie to watch.
Yeah. So here in Florida, what is the likability of earthquake happening here?
Oh, we get earthquakes. We get them. They're very small. I mean, pretty much there's been earthquakes everywhere on this entire globe. So it will never. We're not on a fault. We're not on an area that's where Puerto Rico is, which is they had a big one a couple of months ago, and another one was shocked. I think it was actually another separate earthquake. No, we're not on the fault, so that's not one of our big concerns. But, anywhere you see land and earth, at one point there was an earthquake there for that to happen. So that's not our big concern. We'll lose sleep over weather phenomena, lose it over hurricanes, don't lose it over earthquakes. We have bigger fish. Or murder hornets, or murder
hornets. Yes. Well, normally people, when you're reporting on a potential storm, they just really pay attention to your body language and how you're reacting. And so I don't know. I think we dodged one.
I mean, it used to be, as I've gotten older, it used to be 20 years ago, all I cared about was getting the weather right. When you're younger and you think you can do whatever, you know everything, and you're like, all right, all I care about is getting the weather right. I don't care about how it impacts people. It's my job to get the weather right. And as I got older, you start to realize what I do for a living, it's way more than getting the weather right. It's getting people through that scary weather event. All these movies we're talking about, almost always you see them going to a weather person at some point in time saying, we're only going that way.
Well, people really listen to you. They'll base what they're going to do off of what you say, seriously. So. And
I think it comes with working in a market for 25 years too. You kind of build a little bit of a trust factor with some folks, and some people hate you, some people don't. And the ones who don't hate you, they've grown up and they'll trust maybe what you say. And that's obviously kind of a scary thing, because when someone says, oh, I need you to tell me whether I should evacuate because the storm's coming. I mean, that's a responsibility I can't take, because what happens if I'm wrong? What happens if something happens and they die because of the advice I gave them? So that when we go on television and tell me the body language, I mean, I think people kind of know but watching long enough to know when you're kind of serious about
Yeah.
the storm and when you're like, I really wouldn't worry about it. And I think social media is really good in that because it gives me the chance to really be in depth with what I think is going to happen, as opposed to on TV. You got 3 or 4 minutes, and it's a lot harder to really get that across. I think.
Yeah.
Well, coming from someone that's only been in Florida since 2012,
Oh man.
through Irma, and I appreciate everything you did for us during that time.
Well, I appreciate it. You missed Charlie. Charlie, it's a funny story.
Yeah.
Hurricane Charlie in 2004, I wore a jacket every day I did the weather. I'd been on the air for 13 years. No, 18 years doing the weather with a jacket on. And going into work when Hurricane Charlie was coming, and by the way, you weren't here, but that was our storm.
That was that was a bad storm.
I mean, it didn't hit that way. It hit Punta Gorda, but it was our storm. The forecast track hit it all over. We pulled smoke into the Bay Area as a category hurricane. And so anyway, our sports guy, his name was Jay Crawford, good-looking guy, dressed really well, had a pair of suspenders every now and again that he would wear. You know, 15 years ago. I said, Dennis, you can get a pair of these suspenders. They look kind of cool. I'll just get a pair. Well, I happened to have a pair, and I happened to have them on for no reason when I was going in to cover Charlie that one day. Just the way it worked out. When you're on TV for a prolonged period of time, when there's a storm coming, you take your jacket off. Some guys in other parts of the country, they roll their sleeves up. You always hear about how different weather people are uncomfortable as they're on the air for 30-something straight hours. So I took my jacket off and happened to have a pair of suspenders on for no reason. So after the storm missed us, the station did all this research. Could you like, could you watch? Overwhelming response. I had no idea what the guy's name was, but he was wearing a pair of suspenders. And the boss goes, that's your new shit. So prior to the Hurricane Charlie, I had a jacket on every day. And from that point on, that's when I started wearing these ridiculous things. And that's kind of what people know you from. It's that whole trust thing.
That's pretty funny. What that summer was crazy. Well, not the summer. I think it was the month of August. We got hit with 4 of them. It was crazy.
Francis, Charlie, and Ivan.
Ah, man. We kept having to board the house up. But we moved down here right after the No Name storm in '93.
Yeah.
And that was really bad. I remember people were rowing boats up the streets. What was it?
Yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, I know people who had their docks destroyed. And, I mean, that was a early spring, late winter hurricane. It wasn't. It wasn't a tropical system. It was a 4-core system, winter storm. But yeah, I mean, the damage was every bit as bad as it would have been for a Cat 1 or Cat 2 hurricane.
Now, I guess obviously there's been leaps and bounds in the technology of tracking storms and everything and the weather. Is it? I guess it's a lot easier for you. But like, do you miss kind of having to do some of the old school stuff, or are you like, do you admire like the Doppler and
I don't miss it because it's really frightening to know that there's so many people that depend on you being accurate and to do it with technology that was inferior. So honestly, the better the technology, the better the tracks, the more data we get, the happier I'll be. Honestly, a lot of times the accuracy is just the models very often are better than people realize. The problem is it doesn't get enough data that put into the model for it to be accurate. Like with Sandy, it was a great forecast that models nailed it because there was more information, more planes were flying, more data was going in than any other storm we've ever had. So as we get more and more the technology improves, you would think the data is going to get better and the accuracy will get better. And that we're seeing that. Hurricane forecast there, the margin there is way better than it used to be 6 or 7 years ago. So, I mean, that's what we want, right? Because we want to get people. If you're in Polk County, you're not going to do it. I mean, you're going to put, because why would you want to get an I-75 and be sitting there in traffic for 12 hours?
Yeah.
So, I know you were talking that Poseidon Adventure is one of your favorite films. I have a question in here from a friend who says, a little old school, but what are your thoughts on the Poseidon Adventure with Gene Hackman and Ernest Borgnine? Which I know he's probably late to the show here, but if you want to, talk more about that film.
Loved it. The actual rescue part, because the premise of the movie, for those who haven't seen it, is this giant cruise liner is hit by a 90-foot wave, and it capsizes it. And everybody who's on the top goes down to the bottom, and there are those active sport 9. Can't remember her name, but there were 7 of them. Well, there started with more than that, but anyway, the point is, only like 7 people survived, and the premise of it is completely accurate. I mean, they're on the bottom of the ship trying to work their way up to get into the finished part of the hull, which I believe they said was 6 inches thick. I might have been more than that. I can't remember. The disaster movie part of it, the 90-foot wave. I mean, I've heard of 45 to 50-foot waves in hurricanes. If there's a massive earthquake, in the ocean, and underneath, and it's not so far below the ocean surface, but maybe, or where the earthquake occurred, maybe it could do a 90-foot wave. I think that's within the realm of possibility. I've never heard of it, but I've heard 50 or 60. I mean, you guys remember the movie The Perfect Storm?
Yes. Great movie.
And Mark Wahlberg. I mean, that's a true story. Now, they took some liberties on it, but it's a true story. That storm really happened, and they had 60-foot waves in that. So the answer to your question is, I think the Poseidon Adventure is, could happen. You're not going to see a 90-foot wave every decade. You might only see them every 100 years, 200 years ago. But I think it's a possibility. And because it could happen so quickly, remember back then, that was the 70s. They didn't have nearly the technology to predict where a tsunami was going. Nowadays, you'd probably get more notice. But even that being said, tsunamis travel so quickly that I'm sure that there are some ships that probably could not get out of harm's way. I mean, have you seen the video? You should Google on YouTube the video of the Japan tsunami. It was, 7 or 8 years ago. You won't believe it. I mean, it's worth looking at. It is a tsunami where all of a sudden these boats, cars are just washed right on down on the road. It's crazy. And that was only 7 years ago, and people didn't know it was coming. So I think the Poseidon Adventure, truthfully, is maybe one of the more realistic disaster movies, because all you have to have is a 90-foot wave, and if you have a 10.7 earthquake, then sure, why not?
Why not? Oh man, that's terrifying.
Okay.
Well, I mean, because it's Hollywood, so you're going to go big. You're going to make it count.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah, no, the Poseidon Adventure is awesome. I really like that movie. Should I ask him about Superman?
Well, he did.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ask him about Superman.
Well, he makes time go back.
Yeah. All right, I'm wrong. I thought Armageddon was the most unrealistic. Yeah.
There you go.
would trump that one.
Something with the wind patterns a little bit,
Yeah, that's. I mean,
it was a goof yesterday when I said to him, I said, I'm going to ask him about Superman. And he's like, go ahead, dude, go ahead.
The earthquakes. I mean, you're not going to remember because that's like 50 years ago. That was in the early 70s, right?
Yeah, it's like 76 or 77, I think.
So 40 years ago. And, remember how the earthquake, it just remember Lois her car fell into the ditch.
Pit, all the gravel slides on her. Yeah.
Well, yeah. But it was the crack in the earth because Lex Luthor wanted to break off California, so he'd have all that new waterfront property.
Because he's a land shuckster. Yes, that's right.
So, the fact that it fell in and that she fell in, yeah, that absolutely could happen. I mean, we've seen stuff like that with earthquakes. I'm not so sure spinning the Earth super fast the other way would cause it to go back. And
He was pretty mad though. Like he was pretty pissed. I'm totally kidding.
Yeah. Christopher Reeve was a great Superman. I mean, I will tell you though, of all the Supermen, I mean Henry Cavill. I mean the guy's pretty solid. I mean I didn't like him in Mission Impossible because he was a bad guy, but he was. Yeah, I think he's a pretty good Superman. I liked him. And I wasn't a fan of the Superman versus the Batman thing, but I thought Superman he was pretty good. And I thought Amy Adams. I don't know if I really liked her that much as Lois Lane as much, but I didn't like. What was the name of the original Lois Lane? I think she just died.
Margot Kidder.
Yeah. Didn't she just die?
Yeah. She. I think 2017 she passed away.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah. Yeah, I can't say I was really a fan of her at all, but I liked Christopher Reeve a lot. That's pretty tragic what happened with him. I mean, of all the ironies, right, of a guy who's a Superman, who's paralyzed from falling off a horse. It's just crazy.
Yeah, because I thought he was really flying when I was a kid. Like, wow. Yeah.
Sure.
They used to say that. He'll make you believe a man can fly. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, you got any other questions, man?
They did
Brian?
the curse for a while. The Superman, but
I don't know.
Superman's curse.
I think Dean Cain kind of broke that curse because I don't think anything really bad happened to Dean Cain.
No. That's okay.
Yeah. But George Reeve, still feel bad about that. What was it? I was gonna say. Oh yeah, Superman's parent. Both Superman's dads were Robin Hood. That kind of blew my mind when I saw that. Because Kevin Smith and then, or Kevin Costner and Russell Crowe. It's like wow.
Yeah.
But
I've never heard that before. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I thought Russell Crowe was a pretty good Jor-El. I liked him in that role.
Yeah, it was neat.
And I like Russell Crowe Gladiator. I mean, I think that's one of my top 10. That's probably one of my top 10 favorite movies of all time. So
that's an iconic part. So yeah, absolutely.
It really was.
Okay, so my Twister was my disaster. We watched it the other night, so it's started fresh in my head. So the anatomy of a tornado in general, the unpredictability of a tornado was that well documented? Like, is that really something is it that unpredictable? Or is it just because it was 96?
No, it is. Again, like hurricanes, we're a lot better in terms of knowing. That's why when the tornado watch is issued, it might cover an entire state. So we can see the ingredients that come together that make us feel there's a really good chance that there's going to be a major outbreak of tornadoes. I mean, we can see all that coming, and the models are really good at it as well. But are we able to know? All right, let's take Florida as an example, which would never happen, by the way, because everything's different in Florida in terms of the dynamics for a tornado. But let's just use Florida as an example. The entire state might be under a tornado watch. There's no way in the world anyone will ever know, but Land O'Lakes is the one that's going to get hit by an EF4. The technology just doesn't exist, and I don't think it ever will. Now, once they've developed and we see them on the ground, we know exactly where they're going to go. But no, there's no way. And the thing with Twister is that was legit because they knew that there was going to be an outbreak, and once they started tracking the EF5, and back then it was an F5 because the new scale had not been created yet. They knew it was coming toward Aikido. So they were tracking it. They saw that it was going that way. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty legit in terms of once you see where it is, and there's a warning in effect, and we know where it's going. Yeah, we can be real accurate, obviously, because it's already developed. But I don't think we will ever know where exactly a tornado is going to form. And that's why that watch box might cover the whole state, but there's only a few states within that box that are warned. When you get a warning, it's obviously there's something on the ground or a tornado has formed one way or the other. So I don't think we'll ever. I just don't think the technology will ever be clear enough or accurate enough for us to to forecast that. And just so you know, the scale did change. Not that it matters, but it used to be F1, F2, F3, F4. The scale actually went up to F12, which is the speed of sound. Dr. Fujita, a University of Chicago meteorologist, created the scale. And now you hear EF1, EF2, it just means enhanced Fujita scale. And that also still goes up, even though it never goes up to F12 because you'd have the speed of sound and can't fathom a 1,200 mile an hour hurricane or a tornado rather. But the point is, the scale was created by that guy. So when you hear EF1, EF2, that's what it means. It means enhanced Fujita 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 based on the table.
It still sounds more terrifying though. Like,
tornadoes are scarier than hurricanes for me because again, you don't see them coming.
Yeah, exactly.
Hurricanes, there's no excuse for people ever to be hurt by a hurricane because if it's big enough, you have an opportunity to leave. And you're warned about it days in advance. Now, again, if you're stuck on an interstate or you run out of gas, things happen. But you're given days of notice to leave. And most people wait to the last minute because as Floridians, that's what we do. We don't worry about it. It's going to miss us. And then when it does, we're like, oh, man, how come we didn't get enough notice for that one? Tornadoes, you might get 30 seconds notice.
Yeah.
And
I got to watch my solar panels roll down the street one year. That was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Is that with the hurricane?
Yeah. It was 95, August 95. It was a tropical storm, and then it became a hurricane. It was real fast, but it ripped off the solar panels of my house. And
I'm trying to remember what that was. It wasn't Josephine, was it? 95, we did get one.
I was 15. Yeah.
Was it 95 Andrew though?
What was it? What?
Andrew?
No, that was 94.
Andrew was 90. Actually, Andrew was
92. I don't know. I was living in Michigan. I was 15. I don't know.
I was working in Gainesville. I was actually working in Gainesville, and it was my last year in Gainesville. And when it hit Homestead, and then I went from there to Los Angeles, and I was there for 3 years. And it's like the weather stinks in LA. You get a minute and a half to do the weather, and half of it's the smog forecast. There's no challenge to it, so that's why I left. Well, why would you leave the number 2 market in the country to go back to Tampa? Because there's real weather in Tampa. Because it's something you track. I mean, in LA, there was a stand-up comic at one of the stations. There was a meteorologist. His name is Dallas Raines, and he's actually a real meteorologist. That's his real name. It was like a surfer dude. And in LA, the weather was just kind of a throwaway. But it was kind of cool because you'd go to dinner, you'd go on your dinner break, and you might see in fact, you would probably see a lot, a famous movie star or somebody just walking around or eating at Chin Chin's or eating at wherever. And I always thought that was kind of cool. But in terms of weather, it was a real bore. So that was why I left to come back to Florida.
So that's what I meant because we lived in Nevada and it's like, it's 112 today. Okay.
You went from like dry, arid to moisture, humidity.
Yeah. But I grew up in Michigan. So Florida is like Michigan with palm trees, really. Change.
I mean, you remember the movie L.A. Story where Steve Martin recorded his weather a month at a time. He was a weather guy in L.A. And he would record it for a month and just rerun it because it was the same every single day. And it just bored me to tears. It just wasn't my thing.
It's Groundhog Day with weather.
Yeah.
It was.
So what does one have to do to become a meteorologist?
It's changed a lot. Most of the people who do weather now have formal education or a degree in meteorology. Back in the day, 70s, 80s, even some 90s, maybe 50% of the people who did weather had no weather background at all, but they wanted to be on TV and they were good communicators, or they just, they didn't want to be a reporter. They didn't want to talk about death and destruction and politics or whatever. So instead, they just decided to talk about weather. But it's really changed. I mean, most of the time when you see, like in Tampa, we've got a lot of great weather people in this market, and they all know what they're talking about. And I don't know of anyone that I would be like, well, you might not want to listen to that person, because I think every single person in this market is really solid in what they do. So, but it's different. I mean, usually now there's far more experience and far more education. as opposed to back in the day when it was just a throwaway. I mean, the weather guy in LA, his name was Fritz Coleman, worked at Channel 4. He was a stand-up comic. That was his shtick. And yet he was also their chief meteorologist. So that kind of shows you how LA was with the weather. They just didn't care about it. I don't think it's like that anymore, but it certainly was that in the 90s.
It was a joke.
Do you have a lot of friends across the nation that not just meteorologists, but in news in general? Is it like a tight-knit bunch? Because I'm friends with Dana Roselli from Las Vegas. She's a longtime newscaster there. And I just see like a lot of different news people from across the U.S., always on her Facebook. And it seems like you guys have a tight community. Is that something that you see?
Yeah, it is, because people move around a lot. Tampa's a real odd market where people have a tendency to stay a lot longer. A lot of times you're lucky to stay in a place 3 years, and either you move up the ladder or you get blown out and you go to somewhere else. And then there's just a ton of movement, a ton of upheaval. So you usually, and with social media, again, it's even easier to keep track of people that maybe you lost touch with before it was available. So yeah, I mean, you work with somebody, they move to New York, they move to Miami, they move to wherever, you still kind of keep up with them. And in our business, it's just real common for folks. Tampa's a big market. People don't realize we're bigger than Miami, bigger than Orlando. Tampa's the biggest TV market in the state. But the reason is because we cover such a huge area geographically. Miami's Dade and Broward. That's it. They're still the 14th market in the country. We're the 12th or the 11th. It kind of varies. But we cover from Citrus County all the way down to Sarasota and all the way east to Highlands. It covers a massive geographical area. There's a lot of people, and market size is just based on the population. That's all it is. So, yeah, to answer your question, yeah, we do. And I've been doing this a long time. So it's fun to see people who, you worked with in the 167th market in Salisbury, Maryland, or in Gainesville, the 161st market, and now you see them on network, or you see them on other, on big markets, and it's kind of cool to watch how they've succeeded, in their profession.
You ever get people that try to give you crap about predictions, your forecast? Oh man, yeah, I was wondering about that.
Yeah, it used to bother me to no end. I still get my moments where I'll get in a battle with somebody on social media, and I know better.
The
old adage is you never feed the troll, and I get it. But yet there's sometimes you just get so ticked that
it digs at you, man. Yeah.
You should see his live show. There's when he first started doing his Denis Phillips live, there would be some trolls in there, and seeing the interaction, like even you, I can see on your face, you don't want to do it, but you do it anyway.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Just pop your suspenders when it happens, man.
I look at myself and I look at the comment and I try to bite my tongue, but 9 times out of 10 I don't. I just go after them, and especially when they're saying something stupid. If they just want to say like "I hate you" or "you're horrible," whatever, I don't care about that. But if they say something that's factually incorrect, like that I said something I really didn't say, then I go after them. And the one thing that gets me more than anything, and you guys probably know this, is I pride myself on not hyping stuff. I pride myself on really trying to offer a positive spin on things as opposed to just we're all going to die. And I think Irma was the big thing.
Yeah,
Family, every family up north, they were watching the Weather Channel and other sources, media sources, and they were pretty much saying Florida's going to die. So all the people were calling their relatives and their families down and their friends down in Florida saying, you guys better get out of there because I'm seeing you're all going to die. And people are saying, no, our weather people are saying we're going to be okay. So I'm not going to go on TV and say, oh, we're going to be fine when I know darn well that there's a major hurricane that's absolutely going to hit us. But it's been 100 years since the Bay Area has been hit by a major hurricane. So clearly there is something going on that makes it less likely for us to get hit than it is likely for us to get hit, right? It's been 100 years.
Mm-hmm. I thought our number was up the 2017 with I'm pretty scared. And usually hurricanes don't scare me, man. So
I was more afraid of Charlie than Irma. I really did not feel that Irma was going to be able to make a 90-degree angle and keep its intensity in doing so. And it did make a 90-degree cut, but it did so because it went over Cuba for 18 hours, and that weakened it to no end and didn't allow it to get stronger as it came to Florida. So by the time it hit, do you know that with Irma, not one location in the Bay Area had sustained hurricane force winds?
Yeah, it went down to a 1, right, before it made landfall.
And by the time the winds impacted us, now Polk County actually got the worst of it. Western Polk had some wind gusts up to about 100 miles an hour, but there was never a spot that we actually saw reported sustained winds of 74 miles an hour or greater in the Bay Area. When it hit Naples, when it made landfall, it was like 141, but it never did. So funny story. So I'm getting ready to go to work. It was Saturday, and I'm loading my car up with pictures and scrapbooks. My family had left because, as you see, I have a lot of trees in my backyard, and I wasn't afraid that the house was going to get blown away. We're about a mile from the Gulf here, but I wasn't afraid of any kind of issue from the home itself being damaged. I was afraid that one of these big
debris
trees was going to fall. Right. I sent my family. They ended up leaving. So I got into my car, and I put pictures and scrapbooks and whatever in my back of the car just in case a tree went through this house. And all my neighbors were coming out looking at me like, wait a minute, what are you doing? Why are you loading up all this in your car if we're not evacuating? I'm like, no, you're going to be fine. It's just I happen to have one of the only have all these trees, and most of the people in this neighborhood do not have trees. So you guys will be fine, but their looks on their face was, oh my God, you told me not to evacuate, and you're evacuating. Like, no.
The weatherman's hauling ass, exactly. That's great.
So, but honestly, was just not the. I know people evacuated. I know shelters, as they should have. You know, they did what they were supposed to do. But I was way more scared with Charlie because I really thought Charlie. I mean, 6 hours out, that NHC still had a Cat 4 right on top of Tampa, and then it turned and hit Punta Gorda. I'll never forget. I was on the set, and the mayor of Tampa, Mayor Aurea, was on the set with us, and she was talking about we were going to rebuild, and this was going to be bad, but we were going to rebuild. And they tossed it to me, and I said, Mayor, I think you might want to reconsider. I really think this is going to turn. It looks to me like it's going to turn and go into the Punta Gorda area. And I'll never forget, her words were, I like your forecast the best, because it was still, the general perception was we were all going to die. It was going to be bad. And to this date, she calls me every time there's a hurricane watch or anytime it's coming, just to get some inside information, if you will. I mean, that was a big storm. That was the one that I thought was ours. I really did. I did not think, when I left my house, I did not think my house would be there when I went back home. That's how bad I thought Charlie was going to be.
Wow. So was Charlie kind of the birth of your rules then? Like over the time?
I started my rules back in 2012. This is kind of a ridiculous thing. Hurricane Isaac was coming, and the RNC, the Republican National Convention, was here, and they were freaking out, saying we're all going to die, and it was just really, really bad. And I literally jotted down in a couple minutes, Ryan. My daughter, actually, Ryan, come here. Ryan, come here. So my daughter has a school project that she has to do, and she has to talk about her favorite weather. So she is going to do a weather forecast dressed like this. Stand right here. she is going to be talking about snow, and cold weather is her favorite weather. And I told her I would make her a 7-day on my weather computer that had snow on it. So I'll be there in just a minute. Okay?
Awesome.
Mommy said she was going to put snow around me.
Put snow around you? That'd be awesome. Yeah.
But she doesn't know how to put snow. She doesn't know.
Yeah, you guys work on that. I can just do the math. That's all I'm good at. What were we saying? What were we talking about?
My kids say that about snow too, by the way. But I grew up in snow. I dug myself out of the
your rules.
Yeah. So literally 5 minutes, I just jotted down these rules. Don't freak out was rule number 7. Don't freak out unless I'm freaking out. We're fine. Didn't think anything about it. And I posted it. And now we've donated almost $20,000 to the Children's Miracle Network and other local charities with the merchandise that we created for rule number 7. It's nuts. I mean, I should have worn my T-shirt because I've got. I mean, if you go on Teespring. I put the link actually on my Facebook page. There's like 40 different things that have rule number 7: hoodies and T-shirts and tanks and leggings and all this other stuff. So yeah, I never in a million years dreamed anything like that was going to happen. I don't even know how it did, but it was just one of those things. The Floridians, I think that's they want, and most people do, but I think Floridians really in general want to know that they're going to be okay. They need to have their hand held through a major storm and let them know that that at least the odds are in their favor that they're going to be okay. And that's what I was saying earlier. When in Irma, a lot of folks were up north and a lot of folks on national media were saying we're all going to die. And I knew the odds were way higher that storm would not impact us directly than it would as a 4 or a 5. I knew that.
Yeah.
That you go on TV and tell people, "Now you're fine, you don't have to leave." You can't. Which is
no, the governor was freaking out. He was, go, leave. I remember that. So.
And I think you're right. People who know me and have watched me long enough kind of know by my body language and by how I'm saying things, maybe reading between the lines, saying,
See?
Look, we got to take this one seriously. But I think the odds are probably in our favor that this isn't going to be nearly as bad as you may have been hearing in other places, which is kind of the way that I do it.
Well,
look, Denis doesn't have any color. Okay. We should probably leave. So yeah, that's why I said before, I watch your body language, your demeanor, everything. He's freaking out. Get in the car, kids. So absolutely.
Freaking out. I mean, we had a lot of new reporters and a lot of new people when Irma came, and they were they were freaking out. And one of them, and I needed to be a little more tolerant of this one. They were joking about how they couldn't get to Starbucks to get their coffee, and they were kind of making a joke about it. And they came back to me, and I'm like, "Look, you might think this is funny, but we've got people who are really worried that their homes are going to be gone by tomorrow. So let's keep this the way we're supposed to keep this. Let's keep our tone the way that it's supposed to be." And I was really mad. And I think that story that I told you when my neighbors came out is why I was thinking that way, because when they came out, they weren't mad; they were scared. I mean, they really were thinking, "Oh my God, I'm going to lose my house. The weatherman's evacuating. We're done." And I just remember that feeling when I was on air the whole time, trying to say, "Look, we got to take this seriously, but we're not done yet. We're not guaranteed of seeing this thing, and the odds are probably better that we won't than we will." Now, if it ever happens, not if, when it happens that we are really facing a 4 or a 5, then I don't know what the tone will be. I mean, I hope that people will. You guys are fine. I mean, I wouldn't think that anybody in the interior areas would even consider evacuating, because the old adage is hide from the wind, run from the water.
And people underestimate the storm surge so much, and I don't understand why. Because it's coming. It's coming, man. So.
And there's nothing you can do. A famous story back in 1969, Hurricane Camille was, and you've probably seen it. You might not realize it. You probably saw the pictures. There was a before and after. There was an apartment complex with about 30 people, 30, that waited and wanted to have a hurricane party as this Cat 5 storm came. It had 185-mile-an-hour winds. And the apartment complex, the after, it was gone, completely leveled. Every single person died except for, and it was because of the water, the storm surge, except for a woman. She floated inland on a mattress 3 miles inland with the surge, and she did not drown, and she survived. Now, the irony of the story is 2 years later, she killed her husband and got sentenced to life in prison. So she got a second chance at life, and she screwed it up anyway. But,
wow.
But the point is, water that's your biggest concern. By far, more people died from water and surge than winds from a hurricane.
That's scary because it happens quick too.
It does.
Well, Denis, I know you have some work to do with the family there. Yeah. We truly appreciate you being on here.
This was great, man. This was awesome. Thanks so much.
Like I said, we're a huge fan of you.
We've been watching you since we moved to Florida, so this was really cool.
I follow a lot of you.
And I love talking movies. You can tell. I mean, it's probably movies and sports are are my thing. I've never been a guy like politics or government or anything. I like movies and sports, so yeah, it was a blast. I really enjoyed it. Feel free to reach out any other time.
Oh, definitely.
Awesome.
All right, Dennis. Well, thank you very much, and you have a good.
Stay safe, man. Stay safe.
All right, bye-bye.
Wow, that was fun
That's
talking.
Oh, yeah,
Hilarious. I mean,
that was a
if
lot
you-
of fun, man.
You need to. I can see your shoulder. You can see your shoulder.
Yeah. I had to
I tried
switch
to
our
push it.
view. There we
Push
go.
it down, like push it back, so more of your body could be.
Are you talking to me or Brian?
Yeah.
Because the way that
Okay. Yeah.
it comes on our screen, it like cuts me off. So,
And it's like you're the one that's talking, and here I am.
but
I
anyway,
could only see Dennis the whole time, man. Like I'm just, yeah, you know.
He said
That
he
was
could-
awesome, man.
that was. I mean, he's very fun in general. I mean, like he puts
Mhm.
like crazy memes on Facebook, and
It's a good sense of humor, and I think you need it because I mean, here you need it because you have this impending thing. Like I'm from Michigan, so like tornadoes were the thing, and I was always terrified.
and blizzard, yeah, blizzards.
But yeah, well, yeah.
And
dug
like down here, it's kind of boring most of the year. Oh, it's gonna rain. Oh, okay.
Hurricane.
Until like, a massive storm happens, and it's like, oh shit, you know. So
Everybody
yeah,
freaks out a little bit. I think freaks out a little bit more when it is a hurricane. I think like in general, like people are like, oh well, you know, perfect conditions for a tornado. But what he said is you can't predict a tornado nearly as well as you can a hurricane. It's not impending for weeks. It's not hanging out in the ocean. You know, it's like
Yeah, he says you probably have
drop
about 30
down.
seconds.
you have 30 seconds, kiss your ass.
yeah. Well, my grandfather went through a tornado, and he said all of a sudden you hear what sounds like a train.
Yeah.
And the ground starts rumbling, and then next thing you know, your neighbor's house is, you know, down the street.
Mhm.
And it happens, you know, so fast. Hurricane, like with Irma, it sat over Cuba and just destroyed the place for hours and hours. And I think that freaked a lot of people out. That's why everybody would hauled ass to Tennessee. Everybody I talked to was going to Tennessee. I don't know what it is.
We had friends up north and out west that were talking about like asking us if we were okay, and I'm like,
Yeah.
we're fine.
And we're in Polk County, so we're near Lakeland. I mean, there was a lot of damage. But
It was wind damage, and most of it, like
Yeah.
what people don't realize about Florida, when you come from up north, the trees root down and out. Here they root out. So if a
Yeah.
tree's come down, the damn tree is going to come down like
Mhm.
that. And so all the trees in our yard had a branch that fell on the fence or on, you know, whatever. So the fences were all jacked up. But really, and nothing hit the house, and we were lucky. But we didn't stay at the house. We did actually go to a shelter. And the only reason we went to a shelter is because we're living in a mobile home. We only went to a shelter because of the kids. Like
Yeah.
they would have been absolutely terrified to, you know, hear that wind and think that, you know, was
Well,
going
even in a hard rain in a mobile home, that's scary. It's very loud. You know?
I mean, the winds that rattled those and things
Yeah.
like that. I mean, the skirting off of the skirting was
Mhm.
completely gone. Like it was ripped off of the whole house. We had to go around and put it all back on. And parts of the yard were flooded, but we're lucky that no more than what happened. But we weren't here for Charlie or Aaron or Andrew or any of that.
That was
So-
scary. Well, to me it was because it was 4 storms in I think the span of a month and a half. So by the time the third one happened, we were tired of boarding the house up, and it was like and then everybody evacuated and went to Ocala. And one of the storms, I forget the name of the storm, that's where the storm went. It went right to Ocala, and so it was a mess. It was a mess. And I remember going outside because my garbage cans. I thought they were secured, but they weren't. And there was a playing card sticking in a tree. That scared me. A playing card.
Yeah.
So I wanted to tell him, but
My mom said that the year she was born, the tornado that hit Michigan, the Beecher area in 55. She said her mom was out hanging laundry, and she was coming in to finish dinner, and she was calling my mom's brother, who was 7 at the time, to come in. She couldn't get him fast enough. So by the time the skies turned purple and it started to get real, she's like, this is bad. And so she's
pressure drops.
She couldn't open the door of the house to get in. And so when they were in Twister, when they're pulling the door of the shed open, I kept laughing because I'm like, I can imagine that's what it was like for my grandma. They said that a piece of straw was through stop sign or a post or something, and
that's terrifying. The straw,
all those things, and it's like, you think this thing is not nearly as unbreakable. I mean, like, could you imagine that, like, poking you in the eye or slicing across your face? Or, I mean,
like, this thing was stuck in the tree. Like, there was only about a quarter of it sticking out, and that's like a razor blade. It's crazy, man. They suck people up and just drop you. Like, it's terrifying. It's terrifying, and it happens.
So I'm wondering, what's the attraction to disaster films? Like, why are we so attracted to these films? Is it curiosity?
It's the safe scare, I think, and the fact that hopefully we would never ever have to experience anything like that. So it's kind of like that what if thing. I think that's
disaster movies are always over the top. Like, anybody
go big or go home. I
mean, if you've lived through a tornado, chances are, if you've even lived through an F5, you probably have never seen that kind of destruction. I mean, like, maybe people in Joplin now have seen that, and they could understand the parallels between that and Wakita, but I don't know that, like, I think it would be over the top. Everything is over the top. The earth is splitting California off and into
the ocean. But well, there were guys that were coming out of their storm cellars, and they lost all sense of direction because all the buildings and landmarks were gone. Gone. It was just the houses upside down, laying on their side. Like, it's insane to see the devastation of a tornado, because it's like, that's real, man. Like, Hollywood didn't make that. Like, there's a barge in the middle of the street.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Like, wow. It's scary stuff.
And they're driving through the house. That was pretty crazy.
Yeah, that part was pretty cool. Hold on. Wow. I remember it was right after Katrina happened in New Orleans. There was a bunch of low budget filmmakers running down there and making little parts of zombie flicks because the place was, it was destroyed. And so can't mess with Mother Nature, man. Like, it's no joke. But
hey, so I'm gonna bring up something on the screen and tell me if you can see this.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh man,
Lady Liberty, all frozen instantly.
I'm good with that not ever happening.
I love how Denis said
that's some scary stuff, man. I mean,
great.
Got to save Jake Gyllenhaal. What are we gonna do without Jake Gyllenhaal?
Oh.
No, and Dennis Quaid,
Yeah, so like I was just like looking for different things, and I didn't have a lot of time to get through this, when we had Denis on, but like just different things to bring up, like this one, 2012.
See, that's insane, man. Like, do you know? Because there's nothing. I mean, to scale that right there. That's like, it's a mile wide.
I know.
Yeah, you're like, hey.
Yeah, like, you can't set a quarter on that picture and be like, okay, now I know how big it is.
That's just
that's crazy, man. And you got John Cusack flying underneath buildings, falling and stuff. Awesome. Yeah.
Was it San Andreas where they were trapped in the building with the water and everything? Was that San Andreas?
I've never seen San Andreas. I know about it. That's the one with the rock, right?
The big windows.
Yeah, San Andreas is with the rock. Yeah, that was the one with the boat. Yeah.
And they had the boat where
they were trapped in the building, and
yeah. Was that San Andreas?
And of course, everybody loves this movie, right?
Well, I don't know about loves. There's a bunch of like not guilty parts. There's a bunch of like dumb, cool parts in it. I would have been doing what Steve Buscemi would have been doing. I'd have been hitting up loan sharks, and I'd have had a good time before the end of the world. So, Hey, you look kind of sick. You're not gonna die, are you? Like, yeah. So, no.
Oh man, I just remember when they're in the airplane hangar before they are about to leave, and they start singing "Leaving on a Jet Plane," and of course, I thought this movie was definitely one of the best in recent years.
Crawl was pretty fun, man. It was fun because
It was definitely an interesting take on a monster / disaster film.
I think I.
Well, it was funny because that. Yeah, well, like that came out, and then it was like I think a month and a half later there was the hurricane that was supposed to hit us, and Florida actually made that hurricane go away with the power of his memes, and people were firing their guns at it. Awesome.
Yeah, and it's good to see a movie like that get the praise that it did, because movies like that don't usually get a high praise.
Yeah, usually they're kind of looked down upon, but I mean, it was Sam Raimi. Sam Raimi has a certain touch he adds to stuff.
It was a well-written movie. Like at the end of the day, I thought it was a well-written movie. The dialogue was good, and it made sense the way it was shot too.
Right. I saw this movie was it was okay. With Gerard Butler.
Oh, is that Geostorm?
Yeah, that's the
I've never
one
seen that one. Yeah, no, I've never seen that one.
Satellites to create storms.
Oh boy.
Jeez.
It's a popcorn flick, but that's terrifying. That's absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
Wow.
Let's see, what's another one that I picked out here? There was, of course,
that was fun.
This one here.
That's Deep Impact. Yeah.
That one was fun.
The president was what?
Morgan Freeman is the president in that, and it makes that wave goes so many miles inland. I think the waves go to Colorado from the West Coast. That's how far the waves crash in. It's nuts. And that kid's out running on a dirt bike, as only Hollywood can deliver. That's great.
Right. It was Elijah Wood, right? I'm pretty sure it was Elijah
Wood. Yeah, that's right.
He got hired to do Lord of the Rings right after this movie, I believe.
Good God.
Yeah, it was neat seeing Morgan Freeman as a president, because asteroids coming to kill us all, and he's just calm and cool, man. Calm and cool.
Well, that started him being the president and everything, because he was the president in the other, whatever movies.
Yeah. And then, of course, here's the poster for Daylight.
That's right.
And the tagline was "Hold your breath."
Oh man, that one. Because Sylvester Stallone's gonna chew his way out of this thing. It's too funny. And then there's the one you mentioned. It was Hard Rain, where they're doing the heist. Yeah.
That was.
Some of these I have to go back and revisit. I haven't seen them in years.
Yeah. See, and then to bring it back old school.
Oh man.
Charlton.
Yes. Oh yeah, George Kennedy's in that. I forgot. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Such a fun movie. It's so dumb, but it's fun. It's great.
I mean, George Kennedy was like the man to go to. Like, he was in the airport movies, and he was in.
He was in the Naked Gun flicks. I always remember him in the Naked Gun movies. He's Frank Drebin's partner.
I think you have to be kind of corny to pull off a movie like that. Like, the jokes have to be extra.
Well, because it's so serious. Like, we're all gonna die, and it's shit. Yeah. Go get your lawn chairs, man. Enjoy it. You got a front row seat to the end of the world.
Woo. This one.
This one with Aaron Eckhart and the girl from $1 Million Baby. She was in that Karate Kid movie.
Hilary Swank.
Hilary Swank, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought this movie was all right. They did the drill. They had to go into the center of the earth.
I ended up seeing Dante's Peak. I didn't see Volcano. Because I was the Volcano one. I saw one of them. I didn't see both of them.
Yeah, I think those came out like a year apart. Like Volcano came out like in '97, and then Dante's Peak came out.
Yeah, and it was weird. They did that with Armageddon too. Armageddon came out, and then I think it was that Christmas or whatever. Dante's Peak came out. So it's
Impact what's happening around that same time.
And then of course,
There's Hard Rain.
as we mentioned, Hard Rain.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, Morgan Freeman and Christian Slater.
Mm-hmm. What an odd mix, but kind of worked,
Yeah, and then like I said, there's a movie that's similar to Hard Rain that they did recently called Hurricane.
Hurricane Height. Yeah. I remember seeing that in Walmart, and I was like, "Oh wow!" I'm like, "That's Hollywood, big dumb end of the world movie." And
I have that movie.
They're fun, man.
I just haven't seen it yet.
No, I like watching them sometimes. I do like the sci-fi dumb monster movies. Those are priceless.
Yeah. And then this is the film with Sean Connery that I was talking about.
Yeah, this one I've never seen. So, see, I love they do posters like that. I miss how the posters were. It's so cool.
That is a cool poster.
Right? That makes you want to see the movie. You see it and you're like, I'm sold. I'm sold.
And this was, I want to say, one of her last films. Natalie Wood is in this movie.
Oh, she's in that movie?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I'm going to have to watch it, I guess.
That's so cool. Yeah, I miss those style posters. I really do.
Yeah, there's a documentary about posters.
Well, like it was Scream came out, and I love that movie, but the posters got real dumbed down after Scream. I think they just put all the faces on them, and so it's like a lost art.
Really cool art went away, like after
they can do it cheaper on the computer.
Yeah.
That's Twister.
Oh yeah, man, The Perfect Storm. That was a good one.
I don't know if I saw that one all the way through.
And then there's a newer one called with Chris Pine.
Squall. No.
No, that was White Squall. That was with Jeff Bridges.
That's Jeff Bridges. Yeah, that's a good movie. I almost asked him about a White Squall. Almost asked him about one.
The newer one that came out recently in the last couple of years with Chris Pine is called Finest Hours. It's a true story about the Coast Guard rescue.
Yes, I haven't seen that one. But yeah, I almost asked him about White Squall. Or a White Squall. So
yeah, I mean, I love disaster movies. I had a friend say that Godzilla is the best disaster films.
It depends on what you consider a disaster film, because almost any movie like that could be a disaster film.
I have a friend that says is Independence Day in a disaster film, and I said, well, I guess. I mean, that stuff gets blown up. So.
Huh? Most Michael Bay movies are disaster movies because the seats in the theater explode. So, Michael Boom Boom Bay. That's what I call him. So, what was it? Hey. Do what?
I said there's just so many. She's saying her chair is uncomfortable. So, but this
this was a great time, man. I had a blast doing this. Even if you want to just do it one time where you and I can talk about horror movies, man. Like, yeah.
We love horror movies too. So, I mean, we'll have to get together sometime and you said
I don't know the obscure stuff you guys know though.
Oh, I just got City of the Living Dead and Don't Torture a Duckling today in the mail. So, my Italian zombie movies, I love them.
Oh, although he did show me Suspiria and some of the other Italian movies, and I was like, okay, well, I can get behind some of that.
Suspiria is so pretty to watch. Looks like a painting moving. It's gorgeous. So
the new one, not so much.
New one's different. I just didn't think they should have called it Suspiria. That's all.
I think that sometimes they should just rename things if it's, if you're not going to definitely remake the movie.
Well, like Black Christmas, the one that came out last year, that they really shouldn't have called that Black Christmas. That was way far out. Yeah. But because that movie was silly.
I'm probably in the small group, but I thought the 06 version was pretty decent.
I liked it except for all the incest stuff. And I don't know why Billy had to be yellow with jaundice. That was kind of weird.
Yeah.
But
they had it.
I'm trying to remember.
The kills in that were good though.
The kills were awesome in that flick. They really were. But why was Billy yellow? And the thing is, in the original, you don't know if there's really an Agnes. It's all him talking on the phone. Like the original Black Christmas is terrifying. It's very scary. Don't get me started on Black Christmas. I can sit here for hours and talk about that movie. It's creepy. He doesn't have a mask. He doesn't have a gimmick. He doesn't even have gloves on, man. Like when he grabs Olivia Hussey's hair, he's open hand. And then there's the whole Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon. The guy who's mentoring Leslie is hinted at to be Billy, because they never caught Billy in Black Christmas. Eugene. So that's kind of cool.
That's the movie John Campea says when they were doing the quarantine watch. That was one of the movies.
We actually interviewed Nathan Basil. Nice guy, great guy. A lot of fun. But
someone just said Blood and Black Lace is another great.
Blood and Black Lace. That's my favorite Giallo flick. My absolute favorite Giallo flick. Mario Bava. That's another one that's like Suspiria. It looks like a moving painting. It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous.
So if you had to do a quick, like someone doesn't know what that is.
I like Giallos to the point where that's the bird with the crystal plumage.
Explain to
the
Nicole
Italian poster for
what that film is. What is
a Giallo?
Yes.
Okay. Here we go. In the 30s and 40s, Italy, a company in Italy called Il Mondadori put out these novels, and they were like murder mysteries. They used to reprint Agatha Christie stories. They used to reprint Sherlock Holmes stories by Arthur Conan Doyle. And most of them featured women in danger from a killer who was either enacting some sort of revenge, or he was, motivated by money, whatever it was. Yeah, it was always a figure in black. Well, not yet. Some of them were, but some of them weren't. Then what happened is in the 60s, they went and started making these books. I'm sorry, the books got the name the Giallo, which is the Italian word for yellow, because of the covers. They had this garish yellow cover to them. They'd have a little picture on it, but for the most part, you could see them a mile away because they were bright yellow. I'm a nerd, and I picked the name Slinky Giallo because it's yellow Slinky. Well, in the 60s, they started turning these books into murder mystery movies. And the very first Giallo, arguably, is The Girl Who Knew Too Much, but it's black and white. It's great, it's good, but it's not technically a Giallo. And so 1964, 65, Mario Bava made what is considered the first Giallo, the first modern Giallo, and it's Blood and Black Lace. It's about a killer stalking a fashion house and murdering all the models. It's you can't touch it. It's one of my favorites. The colors, the shots, the music. It's beautiful. It's beautiful to watch that movie. If you're a fan of slasher flicks, I recommend any Italian Giallo. We wouldn't have slasher flicks if it wasn't for the Giallos. And Dario Argento has made them. Mario Bava, Sergio Martina. You name it. And some of them are kind of over the top, but then others are like, again, the revenge stories. Like, what is it? Bay of Blood. It's a whole family bumping each other off to get to the mansion. They want to inherit the mansion and turn it into a water park or a resort. But another one of my favorites is Bird with the Crystal Plumage, because they break a lot of the conventions, because you'll think, oh, it can only be one killer. No. Those shifty Italians, man, they go for it. And it's good stuff. I love Giallos. Some of them are sleazy, I'll warn you. There's some of them where it's all the colors of the dark. That one's, yeah.
No, nobody has so fun in any of the Italian movies.
What is it? What'd you say?
Suspiria was the most nakedness I'd seen in a movie.
Oh. Yeah. There's some other ones that'll woo, like, what is it? Watch Me When I Kill. The girls are naked all throughout the whole movie.
I was I told her about this movie that has just a hilarious title. It's called Strip Nude or Strip Naked.
Strip Nude for Your Killer. Yes, that's right. They have these weird names like woman in a lizard in a woman's skin, cat in the brain, cat o' nine tails, black belly the tarantula, just wacky names. House with the laughing windows. Like, trust me, that's why I picked Slinky Giallo, because I can talk about Giallos all day. I love those movies. So, yeah.
Well, there we go. There's your history.
Spaghetti slashers. That's what I call them. Spaghetti slashers.
That's yours.
Yeah.
I'll just listen because I feel like.
Well, no, we have.
I get excited when I talk about them, and like, you know, my girlfriend Liz is like, "Oh God!" But what's your favorite one? Bird with the crystal plumage. Excellent. Quentin Tarantino took a lot of stuff from that. The music in Death Proof, when Stuntman Mike is looking at the girls, it's the same music. Crystal plumage.
Wow.
Yeah, he takes stuff from Giallos all the time. And it's a shame because people don't know the movies that he's borrowing this stuff from. It breaks my little black heart. So, but they're great movies. I love them.
Well, so there's your history. Now we have to go see what streaming has these movies. I think Amazon has a lot of them.
I know Tubi, the first time she watched Bird with the Crystal Plumage was on Tubi. Check out Tubi because they had quite a few of them. So, yeah, because I got my co-host into them. Now he hits me up all the time. Hey, I need some Giallos. I'm like, okay. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So,
you know, though, I think that there's like genre, like little known genres that don't get a lot of attention.
There's so many subgenres of movies. It's insane. Yeah.
And I like a lot of the film noir and the darker stuff that's really bizarre, kind of, I guess. But I was kind of I had gone to Italy. So I know people are like, it's very free about clothing and everything. And I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. But I watched Suspiria and I'm like, they're naked again. What's going on?
Well, see, Suspiria is, it's about the Coven of Witches, Helena Marcos. And so they're I guess
they're gonna be naked most of the time anyway.
Yeah, they're used to being like in nature and stuff like that. So it's like, oh, hey, but Suspiria is crazy, man. There's a lot of crazy shit in that movie.
And then of course you have like what is it, vampire lovers and all
Vampire LSO. That's what it's called.
Watched, I was like, what are you watching?
And like,
yeah, man, I get nervous with her because she'll come out. What the hell? And I'm like, it's Italians, man.
I was like, why are you watching that? It's like it's 5 o'clock, man. The kids are awake.
I'm like, it's not porn. It's just a horror movie.
It's sophisticated, huh? It's sophisticated. It's art. It's art. It's culture. It's culture. Why do I want meatballs all of a sudden? Shit. This movies are great.
Spaghetti.
I know, right? As soon as they talk, though, then I'm like, oh, well, it's not. It's boring. Never mind. Like as soon as I know that
it's finding some of them they have to be dubbed. Yeah.
If they're subtitled or dubbed, then I'm like, okay, you're off the hook. But for real,
that's a true fan right there. You got to bone up. El Salato Fato Solange. What have you done?
He's schooled me a lot.
That's the name of the movie. El Salato Fato Solange. That's the name of the movie. It's What Have They Done to Solange. It's the name of the movie. You'll accidentally learn shit. Like, because I was getting ice cream one night, and I'm like, El Salato Fato Solange. I said it, and she's like, "Would you shut up?" El Salato Fato Solange. Yeah. But you start learning stuff, man. It's cool. You're getting cultured. You're getting cultured.
I've been schooled quite a bit.
Oh,
Here's some weird stuff. Why?
Yeah,
she's like, and then that fat guy started yelling in Italian. She's gonna throw a shoe at me or Zoom.
Really, they do in Italy. They really do. I mean, they're super nice. They're awesome in Italy.
Nobody makes movies like the Italians. Nobody.
Super awesome people in Italy. I love Italy. If I could have one place in the world I could pick to live, that's where I'd be. But they just yell. A lot of them just yell for no reason. I'm like, why are you yelling?
Paying attention, but nobody makes movies like them. Like that, what Zombie 2? Zombie fights a shark. I'll say that again. Zombie fights a shark, and it's a real shark.
It's on the shelf.
Yeah. Okay.
The Italians are crazy, man. They're like, hey, how can we make this even better? Have them fight a shark. Done. You know, they don't think about doing it. They just do it. It's nuts, man.
There you go. On that note. Well, once again, thank you, Slinky, for joining us. And for those who are watching, where can people find you on social media?
Oh, boy, here we go. We have a channel on YouTube. It's called Slinky's Liquor, Pawn, and Video. And it's exactly what you think it is. Real sketchy. But we love horror movies, and we have a bunch of different horror shows on the channel. Instead of, one thing to do really well, we do a bunch of stuff, and it gets done. But it's Slinky's Liquor, Pawn, and Video on YouTube. What'd you say? Everybody has a good time. Everybody has a good time. Nothing gets done. The main show is Horror After Midnight, and that's hosted by myself and my buddy Casey. And then we have The Shit Slinky Made Me Watch, which is hosted by KC. And I don't know why he listens to me, man. He always asks me for a movie to watch. And I'm like, do you really want a movie? He says, yes. All right. I'll give you something to watch. They're terrible. They're terrible. Like I put him through the crap, man. Well, he's a soldier. And so every Tuesday or Wednesday, that one is uploaded. That one's really funny. That one. Yeah. Don't drink while you're watching it, because all of us have spit while we were watching the show, and it's short, 3-4 minute show. Then there's the Red Rabbit the Red Rabbit Drive-In, and that's where we talk about all kinds of movies, action movies, science fiction movies, whatever, and that's an open discussion. But yeah, come check us out. We have a Facebook group, Horror After Midnight, and I think that's all my plugs. Yeah, so. But yeah,
well, we'll definitely be showing up. And
hey, we'd love to have you on, man. Like I said before, do a discussion. We'll talk about anything. You and I have seen a lot of movies, dude. So
I see where your liquor and pawn shop is located. So, and you're right, it is a bit sketchy.
Roll your windows up. Your car will probably be on bricks when you leave. So
yeah, there's bars everywhere and stuff.
Where's that at?
It's on the other side of the tracks.
It's on the sketchy part of town, but we're next to this nice lady named Kathy's Crafts. I run the bingo over there, and yeah.
I grew up outside of Flint, so
you'll be all right. Somebody steals your stuff, you chase them down and beat the crap out of them. Yeah. Then the bets start while the fight's happening. So, but yeah, come on down to Slinky's. We'll take care of you.
All right, man. You have a good night. Thanks for joining us.
You too, man. Thanks a lot, guys. It was really, it was a lot of fun. So,
all right, take care. Good night. Oh man, that was fun talking with two special guests there. And Slinky's a hoot.
I didn't talk.
Hey, but
Really?
We learned a lot from Denis and how much he loves film in general.
Which is cool. Have to be on another show.
Yeah, definitely.
There were so many questions about Twister. I've never lived through an actual tornado, so
I've lived through.
I mean, they've touched down near, but never actually had one go through my neighborhood. At least, not that I was awake. I think the one that happened the night before my graduation. I think that was the tornado. It knocked out our trampoline and knocked down our basketball hoop and onto my car. Knocked out water. My graduation didn't have any water.
I mean, the only thing like big weather-wise was the earthquake of the 90s, the North Ridge, Hurricane Irma here.
But
I lived in San Diego during the LA riots, and I know San Diego didn't know if people were gonna, riot there. So it was pretty crazy times.
I left Michigan before the water was filled with lead, and yeah, pretty much I missed everything, but I'm okay with that. I'm a little terrified. I'm still afraid of tornadoes. I really am.
So I'm looking here at the comments.
Not so much the hurricanes.
Christopher says deep red is another good one.
I wrote it down.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Figures. Now I'm gonna get into like Italian cinema and be like, I guess I better get to know it. I love Italy, so cool.
Hey, you like to drink some wine too?
Italian mark.
Well, thank
My
you
birthday.
everyone for joining us on the disaster film special here.
Yes, we've quarantined the children in the room for a little too long, so
Yeah.
now
I think
they've escaped.
we're about to be in a disaster film here in a minute.
The inmates are running the asylum.
All right, everybody, thanks for joining us. And if you have a favorite disaster movie, please drop it in the
Drop
comments.
it in the comments. He'll probably tell you about it or say something about it because really I don't even know why I was on the show.
Don't look pretty.
You picked a bad day.
Picked a bad day. All
My
right.
hair wasn't even done.